Good morning, everyone, and allow me to use my favorite Kenyan expression, all protocols observed. So we get all the professors and others who are here into that, whatever level you might have. It is a true pleasure for me to be here today, and I was very happy when I turned into the compound and I saw the Swedish flag flying among the East African flags here. It felt, for me, it was a feeling of inclusion. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think we support this initiative. Because actually our support goes back to quite a long time. Already in 2010, I believe, we started to support this initiative. And for you who are not familiar with Sweden, I don't blame you if you are not, because it's a pretty far away country from this perspective. It is a country in the northern part of Europe with a very different climate and a very different biodiversity and a very different economic situation than the one you find here. I personally marvel when I come here over the number of species, the number of trees, the number of plants that you find here, that we are not close to it because of the conditions that you find in the northern of Sweden, where the cultivation, I used to point that out to people when I talk about agriculture. Our season for cultivating is probably 4 months, I would say. In the northern part of Sweden, even less. And that is what we have had to survive on during the years we were growing our economy. But we have something important in Sweden, and something that I think is important for you as well, and which is a part of why I think we are supporting this initiative. I suppose all of you are familiar with Carl von Linné. Early in 1707, he was born, early scientist, the man who invented, if I may say so, the classification of species. So the classification we all use today to describe the word, even here in Africa, comes from a man sitting in a cold and draughty University of Uppsala outside Stockholm. And he actually, for this scientific institute here, there is an important insect. The black soldier fly has been in the center of some of the big innovations coming out of here. And it was actually described by Carl von Linné in 1758, because we also have the black soldier fly. So he was one of the founders of the natural sciences in Sweden, and the interest that was created and the scientific work that was created in our country when it comes to natural sciences. On the other hand, we have culture of innovation. Many of the daily things that you use today come from Swedish innovators that then helped us to build the big industries we have today. If I say the match, the usual match that you use to light a fire, it's a Swedish innovation. If I say the zipper that you close your pants with, it's a Swedish innovation. If I say the adjustable wrench you use for when you're tweaking with your car or anything else mechanical, it's a Swedish innovation. Many of and that's just an example, so many of our industries are actually built upon innovations. And that is the link between science, innovation, and industry and economic development that I want to point at. And that is something that has been, I would say, nurtured through the years in Sweden. How we can get the innovations that individuals sit and figure out at their workplace or even at home how we can get the science into the economy. And when I have had the privilege to meet many Nobel laureates. And I remember the first time as a young diplomat, I was attached to one of the laureates when he came to Sweden to receive his prize from His Majesty the King. And for me, being university educated, already working, etc., I remember when we were discussing how he had come to the work he was doing. And he said, you know, when you are a scientist, you do science for the science. He got premiated 20 years after he had done the theoretical foundation for the work that was premiated that year. And to me, I always thought scientists were out to solve a problem. And I think that is a bit the difference, the conditions that we find here in Africa compared to the conditions we find in European or American universities. We are often funded in a way that the science for the sake of science, for discovering the world around us, is possible. While I find often here the necessity to use science for a certain purpose, to find a solution to problems. And I don't think it's anything bad with that. I think it's rather an opportunity to bring the science closer to the other part, which is extremely important in this. And this is the support that we can get from the government and the government systems and from the private sector. And that is a part that what is called the triple helix, which is an extremely important part to get the discoveries that out to the people. And there I think we find other challenges here in this context that I have discovered when I travel around, when I meet people. I try to do that as much as possible, that there is a fragmented economy where it is kind of difficult to get out some of the products that the innovators and the entrepreneurs are trying to put on the market. I read as late as this weekend an article about somebody using the black soldier fly to produce animal feed. And he said one of the byproducts is actually a fertilizer that he still, after several years in this, give away. I don't know why he doesn't manage to sell it, but he has to give it away. And he does that because he wants it, of course, to come to use, but it just shows a weakness in the system. I've seen the same thing in Ngong town, where there is an entrepreneur that I know who is producing small biogas tunnels for households. He has there set up a big biogas installation where he takes all the waste from the market in Ngong and produces biogas. But he has nobody to sell it to. He can just use it for himself and the potential, innovations or small businesses he can set up there. But of course, if there is such a fragmentation, if the county is not able to help him to pipe that gas to the schools that are 200 meters away for different reasons, how can you move these things forward? So I think there is a challenge out in the society as well. It's a challenge in the economy to really take up these, and these are I'm not talking about quite simple things, and I think you are working on much more advanced things, but to channel these scientific discoveries, the innovations, the entrepreneurship into the market, and thereby also create the jobs that we are talking about. Because that is, of course, the hope that the African industrialization that is very much talked about in Kenya. I cannot talk for the other countries present here, but that can be another type of industrialization than the one we have done which have created so much damage to the world. I just hope that Africa can leapfrog into these sustainable type of industrialization instead of going all the way through the very damaging industrialization that we have done and that we have to in some way reverse. I know another person here who is working with many African universities in East Africa, and he says to me, I think, Caroline, in the future, we will learn from Africa. Because here you have the advantage, if you can call it, it's usually looked upon as a disadvantage, that you don't have the big structures that we have locked ourselves into, and where we have poured in a lot of money, and where it's very difficult to reverse. Sweden has big production of trucks, buses, cars, for example. And it's a huge challenge for these big producers, global producers, to reverse into electrical vehicles. It's actually much easier, should be much easier, and is probably much easier for companies who are starting with a completely different technology and move into the market. Now there are financial problems, etc., in that, but to reverse something that is already set in a destructive sort of way for the climate and the environment into something more sustainable is much more difficult than to grow it from the sustainable solution as a start. So I think many of these experiences brought us to finance this initiative. I'm very happy to see that it's a long-term financing, because nothing of this happens in a 2-year project or something like that. And I hope we will keep to finance this initiative. And I hope that the African or East African economic actors, and there are many and quite successful actors in a country like Kenya at least, but I know also in many of the other countries around, that you are able to link up with them and able to convince them to finance this instead of financing the old-fashioned type of industry and economic development that so many are attracted to, unfortunately. So by that, I just wanted to greet you all, wish you a wonderful conference, a productive conference, a productive networking, because I think nobody can do this alone. We are definitely dependent on each other. And Sweden, through SIDA, through the Stockholm Environmental Institute and other sources, Uppsala University, where they still work in the old Linné spirit, and many other places, can continue to contribute to the growth of an environmental friendly and bioeconomy in East Africa. Thank you very much.